I'm Danielle, and today we're talking about informational interviews, the #1 tool for moving forward in your career. We're going to talk about what they are, why they're important, and how you can actually go about setting them up. So first off, what is an informational interview? This is about a 20 to 30 minute conversation with somebody to learn about their career path, the industry they're in, the company they work for, just any advice that they have from their experience. So you might start to get an idea of why this is important, but essentially you're getting free advice from experts, and they're either giving you more info before you make a big move in your career, or they're helping you make decisions to figure out what's next for you. And you're both learning and also building relationships as you speak with these folks. Okay, so how do you figure out who to talk to and then actually go about setting up a conversation with them? I'll give you the 5 main steps and then a little bonus step that you can use. The first step here is obviously picking somebody. And when I first started doing informational interviews a couple years ago, I actually just went to one of my really good friends who was just pretty well connected, and I said, who do you think I should talk to? You know, I'm interested in this, that, and the other thing. Who would be a good contact to speak with that comes to mind for you? And honestly, I started with her boyfriend at the time and just branched out from there. And if you don't feel like any of your friends directly connect to the type of industry or work that you're interested in, you can just start on LinkedIn. If you have just a title in mind that might be interesting to you in the near future or further down the road, just start searching that and seeing who comes up, and if there may be a secondary connection, there might be some opportunities there. This does not have to be the perfect person, but if they just generally seem like an interesting human being to you and you think they'd have some good advice, that's a great place to start. Step number 2 is reaching out. I suggest doing this over email, and I will show you the exact template I use that every single person has responded to. Now, part of the reason I've gotten such a good response might just be because people in North Carolina are really nice and want to help, but I guarantee that this format will really get a good response. Actually, in one of my recent videos, I rediscovered this Google Doc that I made that has different email templates to use. So here are a couple I kept for warm introductions, which is essentially when you get a common contact to introduce you via email. And then I have some for cold introductions when you're just reaching out of the blue, like someone you just find on LinkedIn. And the first piece that I'll highlight here is the subject line. And a few successful ones I've used are heard good things about your work, your experience at blank job, questions about blankety blank. So those are some pretty straightforward ones that also kind of grab attention. So I'll walk you through line by line how to use this template, or at least some version of it. So the first line here is really to explain how you found them so it doesn't seem totally random. So I was doing a little research on blank and I came across your work with blank. This person that I know mentioned you when we were discussing, you know, this topic or industry. Just give some sort of context to it. And then the next piece is really about the personal context. So I'm doing some career exploration and I've been really drawn towards this type of thing that you do work with, and I really want to learn more about what's out there. Something of that nature so that they understand you're kind of in that career exploration phase. And then the next piece is really about defining specific questions that you want them to answer. This shows that you've done your research, and it also starts to get the wheels turning in their mind so they can see how they can help you. And I think this last line is really nice. Hearing your insights would be incredibly helpful. Would you be open to setting up a 20-minute phone call? Because it's this very low barrier way for them to get involved and to support you. And typically, if they value mentorship and they have the capacity right now, they're more than willing to help. And then hopefully when you reach out, you can set up a phone call, Zoom call, or coffee meeting and just throw that on Google Calendar and send them an invite. And then step number 3 is preparing. This one's pretty straightforward. You're doing your research in order to pull together about 5 questions for the meeting. You're gonna go to their LinkedIn page, you're gonna scroll through, you're gonna see what positions they've held so far at what companies, and just do any Googling around that. The key here is you don't wanna be asking them anything that you could Google the answer to, like what a certain company does. You really wanna make the most of that 20 to 30 minutes by asking them specific questions about their story that you cannot get online. And the reason I say 5 questions is because you want to still go with the flow of the conversation, but you also want to be prepared. Too few questions means you're not really ready for the call, and too many kind of locks you in. Step number 4 is having the conversation. I got so much good stuff to say about this one. So going into the meeting, have your notebook out, have your 5 questions written on there, and either have their LinkedIn pulled up or just a few bullets about their career path. And you want to also be ready to give a little bit more context about yourself. I used to be weird about this and not want to talk about myself for any of that time, but it actually is better to frame the conversation in that way so that they really have a clearer idea of what you're looking for. So be prepared to say, you know, where you are in your process of career exploration, what you really want to get out of the conversation, and just a little bit of background on what you've tried so far in your experience. And then to really make the most of that conversation, you want to make sure that you're not just getting more information you could find on the internet. You want to get their stories and the things that they've learned from their experience in that industry, world, career path, because that's really going to be the stuff that helps you the most. You can ask follow-up questions like, what was the moment when? What was your specific experience with? Did you like this? Did you not like? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite part? Those types of questions are gonna pull out those personalized pieces. And then make sure to stay on time with how long you said you would chat with them, unless they have extra time and they can't stop talking. But the last piece is you really wanna ask the question, who else do you think I should talk to? This is how you continue down the road of more informational interviews and connecting with not just them, but their contacts. And then step number 5 is following up. You wanna send that note right after you finish the conversation so that nothing gets in your way. Pull up an email, put "thanks so much for your time" in the subject line, and write out a note of appreciation as well as something specific that you took out of that conversation and any resources that you're gonna look into. This person could have had 1,000 other things that they were doing in those 20 to 30 minutes, and you wanna really show them that you truly appreciate the time that they set aside. Again, if you make it specific, they're gonna know it was worth it. And then I will share my secret technique for really impressing that person. What you wanna do is you wanna take one thing from that conversation and actually follow through. A few months from then, you wanna send them another email saying thanks again for connecting, and then you wanna say exactly what result you got from putting in the work in that tip that they gave you. For example, you can say, "Thanks for suggesting that I subscribe to this industry email list. I actually saw a couple interesting events and went there and met a couple great contacts that helped me get gigs." Something of that nature. This is gonna show them that you're the kind of person who follows through, and then maybe they'll have more suggestions or opportunities will come their way that they wanna share with you. But again, it's also to show that you've really found their conversation valuable. And for this last piece, I'll share my experience with informational interviews, how they benefited me, and where they got me. In the last couple years, I've done about 20, and that sounds like a lot, and it is, but it really all started with going to a close friend who I knew was well connected and saying, "Hey, you know, I've been interested in this and that and the other thing. Who do you think would be good for me to talk to?" But it's really just starting with one person to begin with some warm introductions, and there's a lot of places you can go from there. And honestly, I can think back to pretty much every single one of those conversations and the specific takeaway that I got from that. And that was because at the end of the conversation, I boiled it down and I emailed them afterwards, and that really solidified it in my memory. But I think you can get something from every conversation that you have. For example, there's one person I talked to from the Center for Creative Leadership, which is a pretty big organization. She talked about how she didn't go to grad school until she hit a certain ceiling and she knew exactly what degree she needed to get to that next level in her career and do what she really wanted to do. And I thought that was really good advice, because grad school is a lot of money, and if you really know the value of what that degree is gonna mean to you, it can get you a lot further, and I thought that was really good advice. So that's just an example of knowing a specific takeaway from each conversation you have, and just knowing that when you set up an informational interview, it's gonna be pretty valuable. And there were other informational interviews that I had that had really tangible results. One conversation led to a gig that I still do today with strengths interviews that I've talked about in other videos. There's another one that actually led to a job, the job that I'm in now. So there's been some very real results from these conversations, and you never know what each is gonna lead to. And actually, in my current job, funny enough, there's been at least 5 people, if not more, that are from that group I've had informational interviews with that have come up in conversation. Like, our CEO or our director have mentioned people, and I'm like, oh yeah, I talked to them one time. And it's just it was actually super helpful when I was interviewing for this role, because I already felt like part of the community because I'd known multiple people in it from conversations that I've had. So whether having informational interviews is just a way to explore and learn for you, or it could really help you to springboard into the specific organization you want to be in, or industry, or just general type of role, it's going to be valuable and it's gonna be completely worth it. So I hope after all this, you feel convinced that you need to go set up an informational interview right now. Go talk to a friend who you know has lots of contacts, ask them who they think you should speak with, or go on LinkedIn, search around, find someone with an interesting role, and reach out. And we will go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like career development and personal growth, please hit subscribe because you'll get more videos like this one, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. Give me a kiss. Good girl.